right. Well, everyone, let's go ahead and get started. So, today we are going to be starting our watersheds unit. So, first thing to understand is that a watershed is a part of a different ecosystem. So, we have a lot of different ecosystems in the world. Some are like a watershed, some are the desert. They all have different pieces. So, it's important to understand what an ecosystem actually is. The prefix eco actually means environment. So when we say an ecosystem, we're more referring to that community of plants and animals and smaller organisms that live and feed and reproduce and interact with their environment. So you often see this when you're on a nature walk as well. If you just go walking around a stream, sometimes we might see little fish or bugs or anything. They're all a part of that ecosystem, and even the smallest little change can change the ecosystem, sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worst. So, a couple important terms here are biotic and abiotic. So, let's look at the prefixes real quick. So, we have bio, which is another way of saying life. So, biotic means living things, while a is another term for not. So, we have abiotic factors, which are non-living things. So, again, we have bio meaning life, which means living things. And a couple examples are trees, animals, plants, and fungi. When we have abiotic, we are meaning that things are not living. Examples being water supply, topography, soil, sunlight, air quality, even how much oxygen is actually available. So abiotic factors actually help us to determine the type of ecosystem that we're working with. Again, there's different ecosystems for different parts of the world. This affects what type of plants and animals can live there as well. Abiotic factors also affect how we as humans can use that land. Think about how we have farms in our area. We can plant crops in the ground, and we have, you know, cows, sheep, all these different animals that can live and sustain life here. That's not always the case with other ecosystems. Like if we were to live in a desert, we can't plant crops as easily in the ground without some extra help and importing some of the materials. So, the health of an ecosystem depends on the quality of water. So, the health depends on the quality. The type of ecosystem also depends on the quantity. So, we've talked a lot about different ecosystems and you've learned about them before, but this year we're specifically discussing watersheds. And some of you may have known this already, some of you may not. So, what is a watershed? A watershed is water that flows over land and it flows through land, whether it's in a stream, a river, a lake, a wetland, or another body of water. So we have watersheds all over the world, all over the country. It's not specific like, oh, well, this is a watershed. They're everywhere. You are even in one right now while you are at school. So, another important term when we're discussing watersheds to understand is tributary. So, what a tributary is a small stream or river that flows into a larger stream or river. So, it goes from small to large. So, I want you to go ahead and pause the video here and take a minute to think about this. Which is a tributary? Do you think it is letter A or letter B? So pause the video real quick and see what you think it is. If you said letter A, you are correct. It's because we have a smaller stream that is flowing into the bigger stream or river here. You can also tell because you can see the ground or the mountains are a little bit higher, so that would mean the force of gravity is pushing that water down. So another important term is divides. So watersheds are often separated by divides. They're always separated by divides. So what a divide is a ridge of land that it at high elevation. So this is often a mountain range that separates watersheds from each other. The force of gravity causes rain to fall down like runoff when we were learning about the water cycle and falls downhill into streams and into rivers. Think of it like a house. When on the roof of the house, the rain hits the top of it and it goes down one of two sides. It doesn't go and just stay on the top. So a divide is very similar to that. So the Blue Ridge Mountain are a major watershed divide. They have water that goes this way towards the southeast, and they have water that goes more towards the northwest. So a riparian buffer. These are actually really important and a lot more common than people think. A lot of people just don't know what this word or this term is. So what a riparian buffer is a planting of trees and shrubs or native plants and vegetation at the edge of a stream bank. It is used for a multitude of purposes. It is used to slow down runoff coming from a mountain, as you can kind of tell with this particular situation. They have a hill on the side, so when it's raining, all that water's coming down. And so that way the water isn't just going straight into the river. They put those to kind of be like, hey, slow it down a little bit, slow that runoff down. Then we also have preventing bank erosion. It's because it's also being taken up by the plants or it's being stopped by the plants as opposed to just kind of continuously weathering that bank down to the point of where erosion can just remove the rock or the bank itself. And then we also have the fact that it filters pollutants. Filtering pollutants is a really important aspect, um, as it goes through that infiltration process as we discussed through the water cycle. So it's kind of going through that as it's re-entering. So we're going to go ahead and skip this slide. So we are actually in a really cool situation here at Dixon Smith. So this blue dot that you see on the screen is actually Dixon Smith Middle School. But what's interesting is the fact that our school system in this side of Deacon Road is on one watershed, the Lower Potomac. And if you cross the street, it's actually on the Lower Rappahannock watershed. So some of you might not think that's super cool, but I am a nerd. You all know that. So I think it's really cool. The fact that we're literally on the boundary of two watersheds. So our two watersheds, we will worry about this slide when I return. But our watershed, we are going to put the Lower Potomac. Our two tributaries are going to be the Potomac Creek and the Akuik Creek. And then our final destination. So those creeks will filter into the Potomac River, from the Potomac River into the Chesapeake Bay, and the Chesapeake Bay into the Atlantic. If you pause the video here, you can make sure you have all your notes complete because I have a picture of the completed notes for you. I hope you guys have an awesome day, and I will see you all later.